What up? What up? What's good? Welcome to Leadership Over Libations, the place where creatives, visionaries, entrepreneurs, and those who aspire belong. I'm your host, your man with the plan, Mr. T. Brown. And I welcome y'all again, man, to the show. This is episode 2, so we fired up and excited about that. Man, got a great show for y'all, man. For those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, just to kind of let you know a little bit about the show, man. It's not really much to it. We're entrepreneurs, creatives, visionaries, people who aspire to be great, people who are already great, that want to become greater in life, people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired, man, that are stuck in a rut looking for opportunities, not blessed with the opportunities or the networking. They are not in positions to where they can capitalize or get to that next level, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because what passion and people have, we like to emphasize that. We like to give people a platform and a place to where they can feel welcome, where they can come and share their stories, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent, of leadership, of entrepreneurship. People like to see the polished version of everything, but in this thing, man, in this game that we're in entrepreneurship, it's not always pretty, but it's worth the process to the promise. You know what I mean? So with that, like I said, this show is based around people that, want to get to that next level, people that are already good but want to become great, people that are looking for the way out, people that have a burning desire to be winners. You know what I mean? So we do that and have great conversations over libations of choice, whether it be cocktails, mocktails, water, juice, coffee, tea, whatever it is that you like to drink. But we know how people like to, have good times over drinks and libations and things of that nature. But we want to have good conversations over libations, right? So with that being said, man, I want to introduce to you guys a very near and dear friend of mine, man, my first guest for this particular episode. Um, he's going to talk a lot about himself and about, who he is and where he comes from and what he's doing right now. But just to kind of give you a little background, I've been knowing this guy for 20 plus years. I call him my brother from another mother. You know what I mean? Awesome man of God, family man, business owner, multiple business owner. Yeah, the list goes on, man. I mean, I got some phenomenal things to share with you and things of that nature, but I want to let him tell his story. So without further ado and further process, man, I want to bring up Mr. Omero Hernandez.
What's up, Saram, man? Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate this.
That's right, man. I'm appreciative and grateful to have you on board, man. We had a lot of time, trying to catch each other, but we here, you know what I mean? So I'm just grateful that you was able to get on, man, and schedule some time in your busy schedule to do this interview, man, because I know that you got some things to share with the people, man, that is amazing. That is something that will change the trajectory of somebody's mindset. So again, welcome. Before we get started, man, we always like to do, the toast because like I said, this is Leadership Over Libations. We like to toast, you know what I mean, to what we call the pie in the sky. And that pie, stands for, positive. The I stands for informative and the E stands for euphoric, conversation. So that's the type of conversation we want to have and we want to lead with. So what you sipping on over there, man, is as your libation of choice.
Well, I got two things. I got my coffee, and
Hmm.
then after that, I have a little bit of bubbly water.
Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up,
Yeah.
man.
I work right now, so
Oh man, hey, I can dig it, bro. Man, the crazy thing about it is that, if you've known me all these years, I'm not a coffee drinker. You know what I mean? I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't go to Starbucks. I don't need caffeine in the morning to go. But man, I'm sipping on this mushroom coffee, man.
nice.
And it's crazy because again, and this is not a paid advertisement yet, uh, or an endorsement or anything, but this mushroom coffee, man, they've been talking about it, they've been raving about it. So I'm just really, kind of seeing what it's all about. And if everything goes well with it, I'll make it a part of my daily routine and hopefully make it a part of my daily paycheck. So with that, man, let's toast, man, to the pie in the sky, man, to a great conversation. Welcome aboard, man. Cheers.
I grew up around coffee, and my wife's Cuban, so we drink that real condensed coffee. So I can't stay away from it.
I can dig it, man. I can dig it. So yeah, man, we're not gonna keep you long. As long as we need to, like I said, we don't rush the process, man. We like to have good, organic, free flowing, unscripted conversation. You know what I mean? So first and foremost, tell the people a little bit about who you are, as a person, your upbringing, your background, just to kind of let people know, who we talking to.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, part of my life, right earlier in my life. Come from an immigrant family. Parents came here, they swam across the border. We're here legally for many years. So I got to experience what it is to have even though I was born here, I was able to experience immigrant life,
Mhm.
moving from state to state. My parents running from immigration, not because they did something wrong, just because they were here illegally, right? So I got a chance to experience that. Then we landed in Milwaukee, stayed here, and grew up here, man. And went to in Milwaukee high schools and played sports. Was fairly good at sports. Got some colleges to look at me, but just didn't have that edge that could get you full rides and make it a career. At some point I realized that, hey, this might not be a dream because it's not in my cards right now. So um, but yeah, I grew up in Milwaukee and was had great family, great parents, man, that were always encouraging. I think that's one of the key factors right there for me. But then got introduced to our business and been doing it for 20 years now.
Okay, cool, cool. So before you go into that, because I know, like I said, you are a businessman, you definitely have your hands in a lot and been successful for many years. Um, I kind of want to know a little bit of depth of, like you said, your upbringing. You mentioned a little bit about, your family, parents coming here illegally and, getting the groundwork for you as a young man, as a child growing up, but then now becoming a successful businessman in life. Elaborate a little bit about, that process or that story. You know what I mean? Like, to how does it feel to be, put in a situation where you dang near got to fight, every day, just to exist and just to live. So, kind of share with us a little bit about, about your story.
Yeah. So listen, as a kid, you don't know about the problems your family has as adults, right? Like your parents. My parents did a phenomenal job of not letting us know their problems.
Mm,
So I was born in Watertown, Wisconsin, country town. Very few people there, and then we moved to Kansas. My dad got deported a few times, and had to come back. And my mom being pregnant with me, brother, sister, 5 kids. Sometimes my dad would have to get deported, come back.
mm,
This is the time when you got deported, and they would just send you and not register you. They got deported. So they're good now, right? They're legal now. But I learned that there was there was really no excuses for life because my dad never gave them, he never gave excuses and always found a way to make things happen for us. And trust me, it's challenging to raise 5 kids. You work in your typical factory jobs, slaughterhouses, packing houses, warehouses. There's not a lot of money in those things, right? It's hard labor, but yet still found a way to give us the best, right? And one thing, man, I'll tell you this, Tron, is that my dad always took time to sit down with us as little kids. I think this is a part of the foundation for a mentality to grow up and be strong mentally. My dad would always sit down with us and tell us what they, kind of what they go through, right? When they, how he got here from Mexico and then how, the things he had to go through and just kind of telling us his stories so we could value and do something with our lives.
mm,
Because sometimes our parents don't tell us what they go through, and yeah, we feel like they had you we're born into a family, but then we don't realize that they had struggles, and we don't hear about those struggles. And we grew up not caring about having success or not because we don't see that there's a reason to,
right.
right? So yeah, that was a big thing for me. My parents telling us about the immigrant life. Now we know that why we move from state to state. We know why now, but before we didn't know why we would move from state to state, from city to city, and it was just my mom and dad trying to not get in trouble by immigration. There'd be 20 people working. For example, just say Hispanics at this warehouse, and all of a sudden now you have 100 people. Now you have 200 people, and now all of a sudden immigration starts looking at you.
Mm,
That comes. So you have to move, right? So that's kind of what the immigrant life was like. You know, you get a chance to see your dad not come home because he got deported. And you have to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks for him to come back. Costs about $3,000-$4,000 across every time. So it was tough. It was tough.
all
So
right, man. So let me interject a little bit. So, and again, we see the stuff that's going on now politically and in our world, man, that we living in. when you say deported and going and coming back, you know what I mean? Like that's a real thing. Like how does that work? Like I never heard of that. Like I thought once they send you, you can't come back, or once you get put out, you can't get back in. So how does that
Nah,
how does that work?
nah. Everybody knows. They call him a coyote.
Okay.
That he's able to cross people consistently. Cross people right now.
Wow.
It's one of those things that, and you drop some money for that. People pay that. Of course, you don't ever let people know who that person is, right?
Hmm.
Because it's people you don't want to get in problems with,
Got
but
you.
yeah, they comes all, they send you tomorrow, you can come back, right? These people know all the ins and outs of everything.
So it's really like a money thing. It's a hustle.
Yeah, it's a major hustle. Yeah, for
Got you.
sure.
Got you. Okay, yeah, man. I had to ask that because again, we hear so much about it, but that's the beauty of this podcast and why I like to hear people's story, from the beginning to the current because people think it's sweet. You know what I mean? People think that it's always been this way or whatever. Like don't know like the type of things you got to go through, the adversity, the brick walls, the things that you have to face to become great.
Yep.
So growing up in that type of environment, in that type of situation, having your family and, parents, in and out and things of that nature, um, to where you are currently today, you know what I mean, in business and everything that you got going on, what was the motivation or the aha moment? What was that thing that stood out to you the most that made you want to pursue entrepreneurship or wanted to pursue, something bigger and greater than what you were already on, like your
Man,
past
well,
job or whatever.
I'll tell you this, motivation always changes the older you get, the more success you have, motivation changes, right? To me, Terod, the most important thing to me was to make my dad proud of me.
Mm,
Well, and I'm gonna tell you why, brother. The reason I felt that way is because I knew his story, and I'm like, dang, if my dad was able to do what he did with no papers at a young age, what excuse do I got?
mm,
I have all the opportunities in the world. I live in one of the best countries where you can go from nothing to becoming very successful. And I was thinking about this when I was in college because, in college, I wasn't the best student, nor in high school, nor college. I wasn't the best student, but I was a worker, I didn't mind working. I've been working since I was 10 years old and flea markets, selling car audio to, whatever the flea market was selling, right? So to me, my motivation was my dad. And there's a point in time, Teron, where I felt that I was failing my dad.
mm,
You know, I had no kids at the time, wasn't married, and I felt like I was failing him. And a dad might not look at you and not say anything,
mm.
but have that look of disappointment,
Yeah.
and they don't say anything, but you can see it. And I was like, man, I'm like, I know I'm failing. My dad didn't have to tell me anything. I could just see it in his face and how he talks to me. And it wasn't until a few years later, like I remember I was 18, 19, 20 in college, not having the best grades, but then I ended up having a little girl, right? That's she was 6 months old, and I was working at a job where it wasn't paying enough, and I had to get a second job, and they still were paying enough, both of those jobs. And I found myself, you know, overworked, underpaid, and failing, right? And having to kind of have my dad just kind of give me that look, and I'm not saying that having kids out of marriage is a bad thing, but man, I had my kids out of marriage, right? Like, and so then I have a second one, and my dad's like, "Man, you didn't learn," and there's more disappointment. And then all of a sudden, I get introduced to what I'm doing, and I found a way to redeem myself, Toronto.
Mm,
Like, I look at this as a way to redeem, a chance to maybe get my dad to look at me in a different light,
yeah.
and that to me was my motivation when I first started, brother. That right
Man,
there,
man.
my dad more than anything.
Man, and that's deep that you say that because again, we all have that why, that makes you cry, right? That
Yeah.
that turning point in life where, or at least you should have that. I think everybody in life, whether entrepreneur or not, has that moment in their life where they just sitting and like, damn, it got to be something better. I got to do something different. I want to be more, you know what I mean? Or I want to do more. And when you see the struggle of your family, your friends, your parents for that matter, that's the motivation that says if they not gonna do it, I need to. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, I appreciate that transparency, man, because again, people need to hear that. People need to know that regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your situation, regardless of, the cards, so to speak, that you're dealt in life, you can still win. You know what I mean? So now kind of elaborate a little bit about, what you currently doing, you know what I mean? In business, career, family, everything that's going for, the accomplishments, this is a time really, where you can kind of like paint a picture of success, to show people that this is my humble beginnings. This is where I am now and what got you there.
Yeah. So, one thing I'll tell you this, you got to go with the end in mind, understand that, like, why are you getting involved into whatever you're doing, right? If you're buying houses, if you're going into a business for yourself, there has to be an end result, right? Because if you don't have the end result in mind, brother, any problem or circumstance will derail you from that goal.
Mm,
I see it all the time. People, ideas get you excited and get you motivated,
mm,
but that motivation goes away sometimes, right? And that's where discipline has to kick in. So I will, when I got started into what I'm doing, I do a financial sector. That's my main thing. I'm in this financial space. I do everything from loans to insurance to retirement planning for people, and been doing it now 20 years. This is actually my 20-year anniversary with the company, right? And been able to have ownership of our business. There's a certain time frame. You spend so much time with the company, you get ownership. That means if I pass, my wife gets the income. She can sell the business. So I love that part, or she can keep it, or I can inherit it to my kids, right? That's another thing that keeps me driving, brother, that I can, if I pass away today, my wife can continue with it, or my kids can continue with it.
mm.
That's, I'm not grinding it out for something I'm not going to keep or my kids can inherit.
Right.
No, entrepreneurs, what the reason they go into business for themselves, because they want to be able to own something. That's what they want to do. They want to own something. They're not the kind of person that wants to punch in, punch out for the rest of their life. You
Definitely.
know, in that process, you got to be motivated. So, been doing it now 20 years. I am definitely looking to a few other things too. And it's out of the country. I have other friends that are partners of mine or that are also friends of mine that, sometimes we see successful people and some people can look at them as competition. I look at them as collaboration. I want to collaborate with other successful people because their mindset's different.
Mm,
And there's something great outside of the country that I would call it virgin land.
mm.
Well, an opportunity to really expand. And the laws there are a little bit different in real estate. They're a little bit more flexible. So yeah, got some things in the pipeline.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so you said, in the financial space, financial services, and insurance and retirement planning, that's big, man. In today's, economy, today's day and age, when I went to school, I was told, go to school, get a good education so you can get a good job. Right. And never understood that until after graduating that what's the definition of a good job? You know what I mean? Like, what is that? When, I was told that either you overqualified or you're underqualified. And it's like,
Mm,
damn, how can I be either? You know what I mean? If I'm good at something, you should be able to give me the opportunity, right? But if I'm not good, I don't have any experience whatsoever, that's an opportunity for you to give me the job so that I can learn and so that I can grow, right? So what I realized at a young age, man, is that, you really can't um grow or be great in life unless you decide to be great. You know what I mean? Like, unless you really truly decide that you don't want a wage, you're bigger than a wage. And you just hit it on the nail when you said that. So in financial services, if we were taught, different things in school, in high school and college, maybe a lot of people wouldn't be in college debt. If we were
yep.
taught better in school about how money works and how investments work and what's the right time to invest and what's the right vehicles to invest in, and what's the right type of insurances to have, things of that nature, we'll be a greater people. So kind of share a little bit about your journey in that that aspect of business to where how many, people that you've helped and kind of testimonials, of people that you were able to impact their lives in a special way doing what you do.
Yeah. So, in my journey, I've licensed hundreds of people. Um, we have 100 plus agents in our organization. And I'll tell you this, money is cool, right? I like making money and I like having that stability. But what's also the most exciting part is who else can you teach, right? And you know, it's been a journey for sure. I mean, I've gotten people to become brokers with our company. They have the same opportunity to become owners of their business. Young people, I met them in their 20s, became brokers in their 20s. And to me, I'm like, man, they got a future set up for themselves at this point. If they keep growing and expanding their knowledge on our business and keep building their business themselves, because they're in my business, but also they own their own business as well. So that's one thing I liked about it. They can have their own ownership and run it the way they like to. Of course, there has to be a system in place for everything.
Right.
But that to me was probably that's the most rewarding part, is getting other people to have the same potential lifestyle or even better lifestyle because they took what you did and ran with it and they did something better with it. That to me is more satisfying than, like I was telling people earlier today, like, money's not going to come to your funeral home and give good testimonials about you or say good things about you. That's cool. You have it. But what people are, and sometimes you got to, legacy's built two ways, one with money and one with people, and, and if you had to choose when you're on your deathbed, right, you want legacy with people,
Definitely.
and, but you also want to make money because with money, you can leave legacy for generations to come. And I think they're both important. They're equally as important. So that's one thing I found that in getting people in our business to get licensed, become brokers, that's one of the biggest accomplishments I think that we can do for somebody. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. So, like kind of elaborate a little bit about, insurance or, investments, retirement planning. I know when I was coming up, man, I put my money under the mattress. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, all the money that I was able to have, saving, I put it under the mattress, and what we had like a little Crown Royal bag, right? Like literally put money in the bag, man, in the shoebox, in the Jordan shoebox, put it under the mattress and literally, save it. And and when it was time for us to buy something or, want to do something, we go to that box. Then I elevate it to a checking account and a savings account. Where, you take the money, put it in the bank, and then, you spend what you have. And then you get this little debit card. And as you spending money, money is coming off of the card, right? But at the same time, it's like, dang, when there's no money in there's nothing to spend. You know what I mean? So just understanding how banks work and how money works and so on and so forth. So, you know, we didn't learn how to invest or where to put money to grow. Where we see people on the stock market and people, investing and talking about, retiring with all this money, and it's like, well, saying, how do you do that? So what is it
Hmm.
that you do or things that you can educate us on, briefly about, different types of vehicles or different types of things that people should be doing if they're inquiring right now.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this, in the financial space, there's all the information's out there,
Mhm.
but we don't read it.
Yep.
Okay. And then if we read it, do we understand it? It's a whole different language, sometimes. And, planning when it comes to insurance, investments, there's a lot. It's not just buying the service or buying the investment or the insurance, knowing what tax consequences come along with it, what benefits are as far as getting some kind of insurance. Today in the insurance space, there's there's a lot of wrong information going out there, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but the
No,
whole
man,
infinite.
man. Hey, step you don't have to step on toes, but step on toes, man, because not to cut you off. This is one of the things that I'm passionate about is about informing people because there are a lot of deception. There's a lot of people on social media that are selling people stuff that is not beneficial. So
Correct.
I want you to really hone in on what people should be doing because a lot of times it's if we knew better, we'll do better, right?
That's true. You're right. You're right. So here we go. About to do some shoe stepping, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. Whole life, index universal life, be your own bank, infinite banking. That's a bunch of lies.
Yeah.
It's been statistically proven that those things don't work long term. There might be a space for it, but unless your net worth for a single individual is $15 million or more, you don't need to be looking at anything outside of buying term insurance and investing into brokerage accounts, your 401k, IRAs, Roth IRAs, right? And there's strategies for all that too. If you're married, you don't need more than 30. If you don't have more than $30 million, there's no need. And let me tell you why. There's called a step up in basis. And what that means is that when people have a net worth under $15 million, if they're single, any houses, any brokerage accounts or investments they have, as long as they have a beneficiary to it and you pass away, if you put $1 million in and now your net worth is $14 million, your heirs, your family, right, gets that in a step up in basis, which is tax free. In a lot of industries, and a lot of people out there selling these infinite banking concept, they tell people you're going to be taxes, a bunch of tax, which is totally false. So if you're married, you have $30 million that you can inherit to somebody tax free. So there's no need to set up an IUL or a whole life policy if your net worth is not in that range, because anything before that, the IRS gives you what we call a step up in basis, tax free for your family. Right now, let's take a look at most people today. The average income in this country is household median income is between $55,000 to $179,000. So most people in that range, right, are being sold these products. Why? Because of lack of information. It sounds good. You don't lose when the market goes down. You get tax-free withdrawals, but they don't realize that you're going to borrow that money and pay interest on it and pay it back to the insurance company, and the policy will lapse if you don't pay it back. What if that year the market does negative, right? And then you kept taking withdrawals out. Now your cost of insurance goes up. You're not being credited into the cash value. So now you're withdrawing and your cost of insurance goes up. Your cash value is going to be eaten up even faster, forcing you to pay more into it or lapse the policy because if you can't afford it. So today there's a lack of information out there, and people are becoming predators on the lack of information using scripts. You get tax-free withdrawal. You don't pay any taxes when you take out your money. Your family has two benefits. You can borrow the money to buy and flip a house. How? Have you ever thought about flipping a house? How much it costs? Trust me, your whole life policy, you do not have that money in there. And one thing, if you're dropping that much money in your policy, okay, there's so many other vehicles a person can do. There are SEP IRAs for people who are self-employed. You can put up to $70,000 every AGI in there after your AGI, and then your spouse could do one. So now we're talking about $140,000. If the market gives what it actually gives on average, about 10% return. Most people don't know this, Ron. Right now, people saw that in March, the market had dropped a lot. But guess what? If you look at today, we're actually at a positive already. Most people don't know that because what? The fear mongering on TV and people on social media tell you, hey, you're going to lose all your money. But people don't really do the research to find out, like, hey, we're positive already. From March to now, we're actually positive for the year. And today, people still think that we're at a negative. No, we're at a positive. We were at a positive already yesterday. So these are things that I try to educate clients. And now, one thing I'll tell you this. I've learned this throughout the years. People that have money have less questions on investment. And people that have little money or not that much money, they'll ask you all the questions and have all the wrong information. I'm going to give you two examples. I have a client that has, we're doing a rollover, a little bit over $1 million for him. And man, no questions. Omero, what's the strategy? Here goes the strategy. Boom, boom, boom. Perfect. No problem. I have a client who has, because I help out clients from any dollar amount, right? Because that's the reason why I got involved in doing what I'm doing, because I want to help out your average American family, that's working. But I have clients that invest $50 a month. And man, do they ask me all the questions in the world. And that's okay, because I'm here for education or to educate this client. because I know that the lack of information, that people that are trying to make it in life, there's less information, so they're going to have more questions. And that's where the patience comes in.
Right.
So you got to be patient when you're dealing with the market of clients, right? It's their first time investing. They have a 401k, but they don't even know how it works. And you hear all these social media, because today, this is the first thing people look at, their phone. And the first thing you see, if you type in anything, you type in insurance, investments, the algorithm is going to throw you everything when it comes to that. And now you're getting wrong information most of the time.
Exactly.
And you believe it because we don't pick up the book, or we don't hear the investment, the podcast on investing, the podcast on insurance from actual licensed professionals that have been doing it for years,
Mm-hmm.
who have live examples of what they've done for clients, right? It's not theory anymore. It's actual documentation. Documentation is confrontation all the time, right? So you can say the opposite of what I'm saying, but show me documentation. If you can show me documentation, I'll take your word for it. If you can't, sorry, but you're just giving an opinion, no fact yet.
Exactly.
So yeah,
What did you? I like when you said that. You said documentation. What
beats confrontation.
beats confrontation? I mean, that's real, man. And that's crazy to add to that. I believe wholeheartedly, man, that most people just like to make simple complicated. You know what I mean? Like the things that make sense actually do make sense. We just make it harder than what it needs to be. You got people that are so skeptical, so naive and oblivious to reality. You know what I mean? They will get on social media, they'll go to Google and what is the Reddits and all that type of stuff to try to get they research. And it's like, look, man, it's people out here I could put something bad about you on the internet today, and people believe it. So I like to hear from the source and from the horse's mouth. So I mean, I'm grateful that you expounding, because I was one of them people, you know what I mean, that early on, got married young, had my first daughter, and had insurance, but it was the wrong kind of insurance, and that is a thing, you know what I mean. Like I wanted to be responsible. I wanted to make sure that my kids had a position to where if something, God forbid, happened to me, that they would be well taken care of, that they would be, set, so to speak. Because in the African American community, we see a lot of people that die without insurance. And, it's a burden on the family, and it's, we got to rob Peter to pay Paul. We have church dinners and offerings, and, now it's GoFundMe's, stuff like that to bury people. So having the right type of insurance is a thing. You need to understand what you have, what you're paying for. No matter how long you've been paying for it, no matter how the person that sold it to you is a best friend, it don't even matter. You know what I mean? Just do your due diligence. Talk to a person that really, truly knows what they're talking about.
I always tell people this, you should get two opinions, right? I mean, if you have a policy for years and no one else has looked at it, and just have somebody else look at it, right? Because, when I go to the doctor every year, it's not because I want the doctor to find something is wrong with me, right? Hopefully he doesn't, right? But I go there to get checked up, right? Just to make sure everything's in place. Now, if there's something out of place, I want to know right away, because the earlier I catch something, the higher chances of, beating whatever you might have.
Exactly.
Same thing in financial planning. The earlier you find out what you have and maybe have that second opinion, right? The more results you have as far as wealth later on, or catch the mistake early on and you can still fix it. Because it comes to a point where it's too late.
Right.
There's not enough time on your side. Your health might change. And now it's too late to make any pivot, and you're kind of stuck where you're at. And you just kind of have to wait it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's always good to get that second opinion and challenge the person, challenge their base of knowledge, right? If they're just selling you strictly insurance, they're not a financial services. They're an insurance agent. If they're not giving you a holistic plan, planning for retirement, getting the right kind of insurance, tax preparing you, as far as they're not going to do your taxes, but they're going to put strategies to how to eliminate or reduce your taxes. They're not talking about those three things. Okay. They're not actually helping you out. They're selling. Selling you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So second opinion is important.
Yeah, man. So yeah, and like I said, being a person that came from, thought I had it all figured out, and I was approached by a young man that broke it down to me in layman's terms. You know what I mean? Broke it down to me in a way where I was like, wow, okay, I'm glad I caught this early. And which prompted me to get in business and learn more about investments and insurance and, go into business in that area. So, and that's actually, man, being transparent. That's how I met you, you know.
Oh yeah.
For people that don't know, you know what I mean? Like coming in business and, I was a full-time barber, had up my own salon. I was already making a good income. But a guy approached me about an opportunity, and I was like, I'm good. But if you can show me something, a little bit about what I got going on and make it better, then I'll give you the business. You know what I mean? And then he hit me with, who else do you know that can benefit from this? Family members, friends, people that work in your salon. And I said, pretty much all of them, and he asked me, if I wanted to make some extra income outside of what I was currently doing. And I said, what I got to do, and that's the thing in entrepreneurship, man, people are always so closed minded. People are always so skeptical and so, like negative. And I've always said, man, you too broke to be able to have that type of, rebuttal or
Maybe
that.
broke and skeptical at the same time.
You
Yeah,
can't be,
doesn't go.
what I mean? It don't mix, you know what I'm saying? So, you so broke you can't even pay attention. You know what I'm saying? Like I was always open-minded to what's next or what's new. Like what's something that can take me from here to here. You know what I mean? So I'm glad, like I said, you elaborated on that to really know like there's people out here that just lack information. You know what I mean? And if they're given the right information, it's up to them to take advantage of the information that they're given because I used to always say, what I mean, opportunity knocks, but are you opening the door? You know what I mean? Are you really truly opening the door? We grew up thinking that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. No, knowledge is not powerful. It's applied knowledge that's powerful. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, man, I just want you to really, continue to do what you're doing, man, because we need people that educate first and not sell, you know what I mean? And really enlighten people on the do's and the don'ts, you know what I mean? So with that, what are some of the accomplishments, by doing what you're doing for people and helping people and getting people in business, like you said, educating them on becoming entrepreneurs, and creating a business for themselves and for their families. What are some of the accomplishments that you are proud of, that you can kind of boast about, by doing right by people?
Yeah. So, man, I look at this when you help people elevate, you'll be elevated, right?
Mm.
And one thing that the reason you're striving hard for it is sometimes it's to provide a better life, right? And I guess and let me just say it this is the way I see things, right? Um, for many years, I had my two little girls that I had in business that had when I was first starting the business. They had it a little bit harder, because I was not as around as I should have been because I was trying to get things going, build the business. Um, now, my and the mother of my girls, we get along really well. You know, we co-parent phenomenal, right? People are so surprised, how good co-parenting we are. And my wife now, you know, um, and I think part of the reason is because we didn't have money when I was first starting to have my girlfriend at the time raise our girls, right? And one thing I would love now, and this is why money's important. You can boast about money, cars, and trips, and all that. We do have great cars. We do live good. We do travel, and we do put money away. But to me, the most important part, the one I can boast about, is my wife doesn't have to get paid by another man.
Mm.
That to me is everything, bro. I don't want my wife to go punch in the clock to somebody else, right? Because I'm not doing what I have to do.
Mm.
Now I'll work the 40, 50, 60, 80 hours so my wife doesn't have to punch in the clock, right? Ask permission, get up early, drop off the kids, pick up the kids because I'm not doing my part. So the most important part is to me, my wife doesn't get paid by another man. She gets to raise our kids and we're still in business together. She can come to the office whenever she wants. My kids can run around my office. No one tells them jack about they can't be here.
Right.
That to me is probably the best accomplishment when it comes to on the personal side, what business has done for me. Not having restrictions on my family coming in whenever they want to the office or take him anywhere to the trips we go on, whether it be with a company, they come with me, whether we travel, me and my wife together, the kids are always with us. We don't have to, hey, you're staying back because me and your mom are going, no, we're going out together. That's one thing about my personal side. On the business side, to be able to build something that, has given us great lifestyle, good income, but also hitting milestones with the company, as far as being, you know, in the book of recognition for the company. That to me is a huge deal. Becoming, right now we're becoming senior vice presidents with the firm, right? So that's going to be a huge milestone, crossing the stage at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, right? We crossed the stage as vice presidents with the firm. So to me, that was huge, right? But again, training other people to do the exact same thing, become brokers, go over six figures. That to me is probably the things I like more about the business is always other people. We can't grow in anything if there's not people. And if you don't have people that have the same opportunity you do, you have people that eventually will leave you because they're fighting for something that's not theirs. Sooner or later, they're going to pick up on that. If they can't own the same thing that you got, if they can't have the same dream that you have, they will leave you sooner or later. And that's one thing that I loved about this is that I don't have to hold nobody back to become more successful because they can be as successful or more if they want. And that to me was that's about the business, right? So yes, I mean, we hit milestones in the company, became vice president in my 20s, started making six figures, been able to save six figures plus, right? And just have a stress-free life, brother. I think it's one of the most accomplishments anybody can have is, yes, there's stresses, but the stresses are different.
Yeah.
They're not stress like, man, how am I going to pay this bill? It's more like, how can I take this to another level? That's the stress, like trying to put the pieces in place, to grow it to another level. That's where the stress comes in, right? And that's good stress.
Yeah.
You stress grows, right? It's kind of like when you work out, you stress the muscle, it's going to grow. You stress your mindset, your business mindset, you stress your business to grow, it's going to grow. It has to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Man.
We've done a few things. We just the scratch of the surface, and I still feel young. I'm 20 years in the business, still feel young, but I got the energy to take it to another level, right? So that's where I'm at right now. I'm energized, excited, motivated to go to another level, and I'll tell you this: hey, there's no quit. There's no quit at me, right? I'm gonna be dying right doing this business, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where I'm at. Like I'm gonna be walking with the cane. One because it's not about the money anymore. It's gonna be about the cause, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Man, that's what I'm talking about. Like I said, this is the platform, man, where people can be vivid, man, and be just excited, man. I'm excited over here, man, just hearing you. You know what I'm saying? Like just to know that you can be doing something that you love doing and making great income and impacting lives in so many ways. But you said something that was so key. It's like, man, I'm just really getting started. I'm still young, and a lot of people think that once you quote unquote make it to a certain level or a certain status, then now you can take your foot off the gas and you can kind of coast and you can kind of relax. But entrepreneurs, man, go-getters, creatives, they feel like when they get to some place, now it's time to get to the next place. You know what I mean? Like I've done that. Now what's next? Like for me, I'm up 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, man, always trying to figure out the next move. And people tell you, man, you good already. Like you got this, you got that. You travel, but that's not it. You know what I mean? It's so much more to get, and there's so much more to do, so much more to see. So I like your passion, when you say that. Go ahead. I know you got something else that you want to.
Yeah. So entrepreneurs, we never settle because comfort is your coffin, right?
Mm,
The more you're in your coffin. Nothing stays the same. It gets better or it gets worse, but nothing stays the same. And when you start relaxing, it either goes down, and if you don't have the energy, it's gonna be hard to get it up. Get the business going again, right? So you have to stay consistent, grinding it out because nothing's gonna stay the same. You're growing or you're dying, but you're not staying the same.
yeah.
So make sure that when in any kind of business you do, you don't get too comfortable. Stay uncomfortable, stay unrelaxed, right? And I always ask myself, like, people who at another level of success, right? It's like, why do they keep going? You know, you got your Jordans, your Kobe's, right? Who like, man, you you're the best, right? Why you keep going? Like LeBron, I mean, whatever the conversation goes, right? People have opinions, right? But like, you're 40, bro. You're a billionaire already, and you're still out there working hard, perfecting your craft at 40, right? Trying to go for the next thing. Like, people don't understand that it's a whole different mentality, Teron.
Yeah.
That you talk to somebody who's average mentality because they never pick up a book, they never get on a podcast, they never, keep stressing their mind to grow. You tell them, and they're like, man, if I was there, I would retire. Once I make my million, I'm done. Wrong mentality. You'll never make it because when you're giving yourself an end on your success, I'm not saying that, like I said in the beginning, you have to have an end in mind, but not an end like you're going to stop. Like, okay, if I hit here, one thing I found out is this. Once you get there, there's always another level, right? There's no retired billionaires. There's none.
Wow.
Like, keep going. Well, because when you see this, there's mountains, right? And this is why mentorship is sometimes important. There's people out there that you won't, that you don't understand their thinking until you get to that thinking. So, for example, you go up a hill, above that, there's probably another hill down the road that's a little bit higher. And you realize, oh, shoot, there's another mountain to climb. Because before, all you saw was a mountain in front of you. Once you get there, you're like, oh, shoot, there's another mountain. And that's why entrepreneurship is always a place where you can't be too comfortable. What I mean by comfortable is that you got to keep striving.
Exactly.
You might not be out financially, but you got to keep striving because otherwise it goes backward.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's thing. Like, there's no, comfort is your coffin. You
Definitely.
can't get too comfortable.
And again, I always say, man, that that what you hit on there was, comfort is your coffin. That's deep because it goes into what I always say, that true comfort is found in doing what's uncomfortable.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? True comfort is found in doing what's uncomfortable. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be worth it. The process to the promise is not pretty. You know what I mean? So when you want something bad, don't nobody want it as bad as you. You know what I'm saying? Don't nobody want it as much as you or need it as much as you. You did something great to take your family from here to here. And it's like you said at the beginning, for your mom and your dad especially to be proud of you, to look at you and say, man, you've done something great. And I'm pretty sure at this stage of the game, before we go into what's next for you, I'm sure you can elaborate on what you've been able to do in business that allowed you to have the life and the freedom, the time freedom and the money freedom to be able to lavish on your people, to lavish on your mom and dad, to lavish on your kids and your wife. So what are some of the things, if you care to share, that you were able to do for your family, that you're proud of, that most people will take for granted? You know what I mean? Like, it's all about them. It's all about them. But I can see from your heart and from your passion that this is not about you. So elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this, I'm gonna start with my wife, right? My wife, she was, when I met her, right, I had 2 little girls, right? I had like people say a baggage, right?
Yeah.
And one of them was like 2 years old. The other one was 4. And I met my wife. My wife's beautiful, right? She's a beautiful wife, beautiful woman. And when I met her, she was like 21 years old, right? Like, what the heck is she doing with this guy? My wife's beautiful, just gorgeous. And I'm like, and I'm over here trying to date her, not telling her I have 2 little girls, right? And when I told her, she was all cool with it. And she helped me raise my little girls, right? And to me, I ended up, I ended up having a kid out of marriage with her, right? So my dad was like, okay, as long as you can take care, before it was like, my dad was like, you know what, man, you don't learn. Now he's like, okay, you can take care of her and the baby. That's not a problem. But he was like, I wish you would have done something where you got married beforehand. Because I had 3 kids out of marriage, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I get my dad's point of view.
Right.
But I wanted to be special for my wife, right? And so I ended up, we ended up getting married in Mexico, and I paid for her parents' hotel and flights, and the week we were there, my parents, their hotel, their flight. I paid basically for everybody, for the whole wedding, right? And I didn't know that the a destination wedding, that a lot of people wouldn't show up. So I was expecting, in my mind, I was expecting a lot of people to show up. Man, I had about 75 people that showed up for a destination wedding, which people were like, that's a lot of people.
It is.
And I wasn't aware of that. When I was at Spanish throw parties, we had like 500 people showing up,
Oh, wow.
and when you do it locally, right? But when you do a destination, I was expecting a lot more people. But I was glad I was able to do that for my wife. And my parents and her parents, they don't have much time in the country. They never went out places, traveled. They came from Cuba, and that was it. It wasn't no traveling. So to get a chance to take them a place and travel with them, that was important. My parents, man, I've been able to take them places to travel. A story for me that was really kind of personal was, my dad always worked at factory jobs. So factory jobs back then was $15 an hour. And with 5 kids, my mom worked at the same job. They've always told us about taking us to Disney, right? And with 5 kids, making $15 an hour wasn't enough. And I remember when I had my son and my 2 little girls, we went to a trip to Disney, and I told my mom and dad, hey, mom, dad, I want to take you guys to Disney with us. And my dad told me, he goes, man, I remember trying to take you guys and I couldn't. And now you're taking me with my grandkids. That to me was, and I was like, Dad, here goes a car. Do whatever you want, right? Buy whatever you need, and got a chance to see my mom and dad, take a picture in front of the castle, and it's like, that to me was like a great moment for me, because they got to spend it. And maybe they can take us, but they got to spend some time with their grandkids at Disney. So we take them to trips. I take my parents to trips with us all the time too, right? Then you take care of your parents. I whenever they needed something, I was always there for them to help them out, financially. So those things are important. Taking care of them financially. They got to retire a little bit early. My mom retired at 58. My dad retired at 60. Most people, when you don't work at a factory job, you don't get to retire that early. Sometimes you're still working to like 70. So that kind of stuff, where they don't have to worry, because, we're taking care of them, not just me, but I have 5 brothers and sisters, but we're able to take care of them. And it's really just me and my brother, right? Because me and my brother are I would say the ones that are a little bit better off, financially. So that, yeah.
Man, that's deep. I appreciate that, man. So again, y'all can't get it no better than this, man. You know what I mean? Like I said, to have real true leaders, real true people that are down to earth, that are real, that are transparent, to be able to share, life stories, real testimony that outweighs opinion. You know what I mean? So with that, bro, what's next? You know what I mean? I know accomplishing a lot, we always say, man, I've hit this, but I'm still going. I'm still fired up and excited about life and about business and expanding, and like you said, doing things overseas and doing stuff that people will look at you and say you crazy. You know what I mean? And I'm a firm believer, man, that if people not telling you that you crazy or that you insane, then you're not doing something right. You know what I mean? Just starting this podcast, like people know my track record. You know what I mean? They know about the successes and the things that I've accomplished, and always got my hand in something. I never wanted to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? I always wanted to be a guy that you can't tell me no. You can't tell me I can't. So I'm going to try my hand at it. But this is something I'm passionate about, because as an entrepreneur, as a creative, I want to inspire other people that have that heart, to win, but just don't know how. That don't have the right people in their corner or the right people in their path, to assist them. Because a lot of times people, man, they don't want you better than they are. They want you to find it out or figure it out. And it's like, no, I want a platform, man, where I can bring people on that have some insight, that have some expertise, that can shed light on the person that want to throw in the towel too soon, or the person that is passionate about creating or inventing or opening, anything, to say, man, if they can do it, I can do it. So,
Yeah.
like what's next for you, after all of it?
Before I go into that, you said something. You said jack of all trades, master of none, right? However, in entrepreneurship, this is what happens. This is actually the mistake that a lot of people do. You say you have your hands in a lot of stuff, okay? But, and it's going to be kind of an explanation here. a lot of people have great ideas, and you have to stick to one until you make it work.
Mm-hmm.
That one's going to funnel everything else. You know, people say you got to have 7 streams of income. That's cool. That might be the case, but that's not how you become successful first. You got to find one that you mastered, and then that funnels everything else.
Exactly.
Because otherwise you're stretching yourself too thin, and there's not enough cash flow coming in to sustain everything else in case one of them don't work.
Mm-hmm.
You can put yourself in a situation where you're bad financially because you're putting everything in different places.
Right.
Now, Jack of all trades, master of all, a master of none is this. Most people need a master entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you're able to do a lot of things is because you mastered entrepreneurship. So you can be a jack of everything because you master. When you go in for business for yourself, you know, you're doing this, you're doing all the businesses you've had, you mastered businesses, you mastered entrepreneurship, the mindset. So if you get yourself into something else, you're not stressed out because you don't know what to do. No, you just pivot. Hey, I'll take care of this, I'll take care of that. Boom, boom, you're moving because you master entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not, I'll punch in my 40 hours, come home, you know, take a break. No, that's not entrepreneurship. If you're thinking about that, you might as well not even get started because you're going to fail. And you're going to be in a worse off situation because you're going to put yourself into bankruptcy possibly, you know? So get yourself in the mindset that you can do a lot, but get good at entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship is the what you need to master to become a jack of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, you know, I'm always like, you know, I have friends of mine that are, you know, entrepreneurship is a talk, right? You go talk to I have a friend that owns a couple restaurants here in Milwaukee. And, you know, just his wife is Dominican. And he's and he's Colombian. So he's very always entrepreneur, you know, take risk, you know, it is what it is, put everything on the table. And he's had success, you know, and, you know, he's always, you know, he had a massive heart attack at 33 years old, bro, massive heart attack, almost died.
Mm.
And like, and so he had different ways of thinking about life. However, you know, he went to Dominican Republic recently, and me and him are always throwing ideas at each other, you know, and of something we could possibly do together, right? And you know, places like the DR, Cuba, Puerto Rico, you know, those are 3 islands that are beautiful. People like the Caribbean, they like going to the ocean. The only thing is, you got places like PR who's already been. It's kind of hard to have any massive success there because there's a lot of laws on real estate there already. And in Cuba, you can't even get in, right? And but the DR is a little bit different. The DR has very flexible laws in real estate, and you know what we hear about DR is Punta Cana. That's it.
Yeah, been there.
But there's so much ocean land that is owned by farmers that have had it for 40, 50, 60. Their grandparents had it, and they are attached emotionally that they don't want to get rid of it. And there's no dollar amount that they would get rid of it because they want to feel like they still own it because there's an emotional attachment to that land.
Right.
However, they're not working them. So we have an idea. I don't want to share it completely, but it's along the lines of owning the real estate, kind of like with leasing lands to businesses on the ocean front. And if you realize what the cash flow is over there, it's really low. I mean, you get somebody, most people don't make $1,000, $1,500 a year. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Wow.
And they have this lands that are worth, that people would spend millions to buy, but they're not willing to sell because it's an emotional attachment and they want to feel like they still own them. So when you lease it, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
you can
sure.
still own it.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can develop on it.
Right.
And and again, the laws are a lot more flexible there than anywhere in the Caribbean. And you can't do that in the US because there's so many, you know, laws when it comes to real estate, and you're not limited of being able to buy in the DR.
Right.
But you need to know the people. And because my friend knows the people, he threw this idea, and we're gonna put in place some strategies for that. I mean, we have the mouthpiece. We can sell it, you know? So it's, see, that's what I'm saying. Like collaboration. I could be like, he's successful. I forget. I'm not going to collaborate with him. I'm going to hate on him. No, when you hate on other people that are successful, you're missing out on opportunities. You know, people who are successful, they want to collaborate. They always keep their mind open to something new.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that could be a double-edged sword where you can open your mind up to something new, but you're not mastering one yet.
Right.
You're not good at either one, right? So at this point, he's had his business, his restaurants for years. And I told him, look, bro, we're not doing this because we need the money. We want to keep growing, So it's not like it's hard to go into business with somebody that they need the money, because that's where they cut corners and they try to cheat out other partners. And when you need the money, that's kind of the worst person to go in business with.
Yeah.
It's people that don't need the money, that want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the collaborations work really well.
Yeah. And that's for
Yeah.
sure, man. Like, and I'm a firm believer and attest to that, because, everything that I've done in business has been self-propelled. It has been, you want to bring your family, your friends, your best, your besties in business with you. But like you said, true entrepreneurs, they want to collaborate. They want to help elevate each other. It's the pushing up people principle. You know what I mean? Like, I want to help you, you help me, we help each other grow. But the people that have the broke mentality, the people that have the selfish mentality, the crab mentality, they are trying to withhold everything. They want to, again, you know, I did it so you figure it out. You know what I mean? And like you said, that was so crazy. And you didn't have to elaborate. I picked up on it right away. You know what I mean? Like expansion and growing and doing things that people wouldn't even imagine. If it exists, I want it. You know what I mean? And if it don't, I'm gonna create it. You know what I'm saying? So to be, like you said, in business with somebody, the people that are broke, they can't afford to take a loss. Why go in business with somebody that's trying to figure out how they're gonna pay their next bill? They quick to, man, are we making money yet? I need to get my money back, the initial investment and all that. So it's like, I didn't want to run into that stuff. So not taking no loans out, not taking, the bailouts or, the credit and stuff like that, man. I grind, like you said, in one entity, master that thing, build up enough and say, hey, I'm gonna go start this now. Now I can go start this now. Because if that doesn't do so well, I don't use the word fail, right? If it doesn't go as planned,
Mhm.
then it's a lesson learned behind that, and now the next time I try to go at a certain thing, or the next time I try to go at about this particular opportunity or this type of business venture, I know what to do and what, not to do, right? So with that, man, as we close, what are some of the things that you want to share, with the people as it relates to, golden nuggets, we call them, the gems that you want to drop, the
G-Wag.
the words of inspiration to, the aspiring entrepreneur, the aspiring, creative, the person that is on the brink of something great, but really just needs something to make them say, that's it. That's what I needed. I'm about to go get it.
One is first and foremost is one, don't stop. Well, in other words, don't quit, right? Man, so many people quit right before they hit a milestone,
Hmm.
and somebody else that's passing. So one thing I'll tell you about this, right? The same stuff that stops you anywhere in any business, I call it a wall, right? And people will say, well, I didn't have success here. Let me go try something else.
Hmm.
Why didn't? And then what happens is that it's not the business, it's the wall that's in their mindset that keeps limiting them and puts them back where they're supposed to be in their mind.
Hmm.
But one is, you got to keep going regardless. Don't quit, right? Keep going. Second is, don't ever screw nobody over.
Hmm.
If you take a penny from somebody, they'll remember that forever. If you give them $1,000, they probably won't talk about it and won't even thank you, and probably won't even let anybody know. But the moment you owe a penny to them because you took advantage of them, they will tell everybody. And so, in other words, your reputation is everything. Do your best at sometimes you gotta take the L, right? Because you're not trying to win the battle, you're trying to win the war,
Hmm.
right? And it's not about being right all the time, it's about building a team. And always people are trying to be right instead of building their team.
Hmm.
So sometimes you got to step back and understand, this is where wisdom comes in, is, what am I trying to accomplish with this? Am I trying to make myself look right so I can look like I'm above them? Or am I going to take the L because my strategy is different than what their short-minded thinking is? So that to me is that don't quit, make sure that you don't screw people over. And the world is round. What you do to one person, maybe that person might not do it to you, but somebody else will. And you'll be like, damn. And you're going to be like, damn, I remember doing that to that person. And now it's coming back to me here. And so learn to forgive people, because you're not forgiving them for their peace of mind. You're doing it for your peace of mind. I've been screwed over in the business many times, Toronto. But I learned to forgive, right? Not forget, right? I forgive. Because I'm doing it for my peace, for my sanity, so I can, keep building what I'm building, and eventually the people with good hearts that did that to you will eventually come back. And yeah, and this is where, man, humility is so important. In business, you gotta be, I don't want to say humble, because humble sounds like you're putting yourself down to lift other people up. No, what I'm trying to say is humility is that you realize you messed up. Let me I'm gonna take
Accountability.
accountability. There you go, accountability. And it may not be right now that they say, you know what, you were right, brother. No, they might be like, you know what, man, I apologize. Now I see that maybe it wasn't the right move at that moment, and that's okay. You know what, you move on and keep growing, right? But you were at peace so many months ago, so many years ago, you forgot about it. And the reason they come back now and say that is because you've been in their mind for years, and they know they screwed you over somehow. But you've been at peace for years,
Exactly.
and you keep growing and you keep having success, and they keep thinking about what they did to you, and they're like, man, and he's still having success, and and now they're like, they want to collab or they want to do something, but they first got to apologize or take accountability for what they did, right? And this is where you got to be like humble enough, or have humility to say, you know what, no, I accept your apology or whatever they tell you, but yeah, let's keep going, and that's it. You might not go into business ventures with them again, but um, you you don't break that, you don't cut that bridge from that person, because you never know, bro. You never know. That's why you never want to cut a bridge with somebody, because you never know
When you
where
have to
that
cross
person,
it.
where they can bring some value to you, and or vice versa.
Right.
And you might bring some value to that person because you might change their life, something you told them. Words are powerful. Words can change somebody's life.
Exactly.
It starts wars and ends wars.
That's right, man. That's right. So yeah, man. Man, I'm full. You know what I mean? Like I really am full to really hear, from your perspective, you know what I mean? Like the start, the now and where you headed. I'm sure somebody that's listening to this or watching this is definitely full as well. To be able to, again, witness greatness and witness a person that's selfless, a person that really truly has a heart and a passion and desire to not only win for themselves but to win for other people. Putting people in position. You know what I mean? So, that's phenomenal, bro. So, um, yeah, man, I appreciate you for stopping by, man. I don't want to take more of your time. Um, Again, this was a great opportunity. This is episode 2. You're a part of greatness, man, and I appreciate
Thanks,
you
man.
for just taking time out of your schedule. So we gonna toast to your success, man, to your future endeavors. My coffee done got a little cold, but the crazy thing about it is man, I hear people that drink iced coffee, right? And I've been
Yeah,
sipping on it, and it's kind of cool, but it's still good. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not messed up about it. So we gonna let you go on that note, man, and toast to your future success, your future endeavors. The P standing for prosperity, the I standing for independence, and the E standing for eminence. You know what I mean? So, and everything that you do from here on out, man, I appreciate you.
awesome. Yeah,
Cheers.
appreciate you too. Take care.
All right, y'all. That's another segment, another show on Leadership Over Libations. Thank y'all for stopping by, man. We had an awesome guest, Mr. Omero Hernandez. All of his information, how to contact him, social handles, business handles, everything is going to be in the bio. So, man, again, I thank y'all for stopping by, for tuning in, for listening, and for watching. Go like, share, and subscribe right now because you don't want to miss out on the next best thing that's growing. So until then, man, keep in mind, if you aim at nothing, you bound to hit it, guaranteed. We out.